I knew I wanted to quit my career at some point. And yeah, it took me 10 extra years than I planned. But
yeah,
this is what I worked so hard for.
Working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working
It
hard
is.
for something we love is called passion. That's why Simon said it, right?
100%.
Yeah, kind of cool to see not only other cultures accepting us, but even our own kids, see them gravitate back towards like, oh, my culture is cool. It's so powerful to be able to do that through art.
My kids are reposting my stuff and feeling proud. And I think that means more to me than anything.
So Dinesh, growing up, I loved drawing, coloring, painting. And oftentimes we didn't really have the money, honestly, to buy all of these art supplies and different kinds of paper and all of this. And I'm an only child, for those of the listeners that have followed us for a while know that. And so often what I would do is I would just take a pen or take a pencil and it's just me in the corner of my world, like doing art. And then somewhere along the way, I got the message that, you know, art is really just meant for that. It's meant for childhood. And I'm so excited that today we get to bring yet another incredibly and uniquely talented guest on that's disproving that.
Yeah. I mean, our guest today, listeners, I got to tell you, you have to go check out her work. She is one of the most talented people or work I've ever seen across so many different like media genre, right? And we have Neha with us, who is one of the most sought after henna artists on the planet. But you know what? That is an understatement. She is so much more than a henna artist. And we're so glad to have her here. Neha, how are you?
Oh, good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Where are you based?
I'm based in Los Angeles, California.
La La Land. Terrific.
Definitely.
So it's early for you. Thanks for joining us.
I wanted to dive right in. Henna, Mendhi. Tell us, for most of our listeners are South Asian and they're really familiar with the concept and everything else. But just in case, right? We're all kind of in a different path of how much South Asian we're actually being in our lives.
Yeah.
Tell us, like, what's the difference?
Oh, between henna and Mendhi?
Yeah. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I think I know what it is, but I don't want to make an assumption. So you're the expert here.
So henna is a plant, right? So we take those leaves, dry them up, crush them up, sift it out. We sift out all the twigs and like all the hard pieces, and then we end up with a fine powder. So that's henna. But Mendhi is the art of henna. So it's like, it's the actual artwork you create using the henna, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Mendhi is the art of the henna. When you get your nails done at the salon, you have the nail polish, and then you have the term getting my nails done. Mm-hmm. So it's like you have henna and then you're getting your Mendhi done. It's very similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that question, Seema. So I traditionally think of henna and Mendhi as a wedding activity, right?
Yeah.
But I'm looking at your website and I see Sharif O'Neal, who's Shaq's son, right?
Yeah.
I see Jay Shetty. I see so many people in the non, Desi wedding atmosphere getting henna and Mendhi done. Is henna becoming what yoga was about 10 or 15 years ago?
I wouldn't say it is what yoga was 10 or 15 years ago, because to me, I mean, maybe now that I'm thinking about it.
Like, is it coming mainstream is what I'm saying. Is it coming mainstream?
I want to say it's becoming mainstream, but I do think, like, as a henna artist, I have a responsibility to kind of explain to people why we do Mendhi, right? Yeah. And it's not limited to just weddings or anything like that. Like, for some people, they need it to kind of, Mendhi has essential oils in it. So it naturally like relaxes the body. The product itself, henna, it cools the body. That's why it's been used all over Africa, India, the Middle East for centuries. It works as a natural sunscreen, and in those high temperature climates, like, you need something to kind of cool you and calm you. And that's why we use it for weddings. It's to like calm the bride down and kind of give you that Zen feeling. And it's celebratory, like a way to adorn yourself for your big moment. And, that's why we do it. So for people outside of our culture to be using the artwork and celebrating their own milestones or maybe a special moment in their life. Like for me, I feel like it's essential for that. Like, why wouldn't you use it for that? So
Yeah.
I try to kind of bring that, the meaning of it to the forefront when I talk to them about it, and they feel better about it. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to appropriate your culture. And I'm like, no, like it's been done for centuries. And to be honest, like moving forward, I feel like everyone is crossing over in terms of cultures, right? Like I'm in the wedding industry. I see cross-culture weddings all the time. And so if you're marrying an Indian man, you're still going to get your mehndi done. That's not appropriation, right? And your children may be mixed, and they want to try it out. And maybe the generation after them will be, and so a lot of these people have a little bit of Indian in them and they want to like tap into that. To me, that's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's great. I think the world gets smaller, right? I mean,
for sure.
We talked about the cultural divides and the borders becoming almost non-existent. And
yeah, they're blurred.
They're totally blurred. And one day, especially in large metropolitans, more so, you can see it. One day, you want to have Indian food, and the other day you want Korean food, and it's just as accessible.
Yeah.
Whereas when we were growing up, especially places where Seema and I grew up, outside of a Taco Bell, on running for the border, you didn't have a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned too, I was reading an article, I think in NBC about you, Neha, and you touched on this and it hit home. When I was little, and I guess when we were all little, right, that blurring had not happened yet. And so there was a very distinct, like I was one of the onlys, I was in the only club, right? And so I already looked different and I smelled different. And I remember, as a little girl, kind of touching back on the cooling effect. And my mom would let me do, mehndi and stuff when we would visit India, and it would feel so nice. And then I would come back and I would almost be ashamed of, and I would hide it. And even, I kid you not, even the day after my wedding, we were leaving to go to our honeymoon, and they asked me to take my sweatshirt off, and it revealed all this mehndi, and it freaked the TSA agent out.
Yeah.
Right. And it like, the whole energy of the interaction changed. We almost missed our flight all because she saw my mehndi. And now all that to say, now my daughter and my son, like they're, there's Bollywood music everywhere. You can order an Indian food anytime. All these little girls are like, you see them going to school with their mehndi done, and it's accepted. It's celebrated.
Yeah, they're the coolest kids with their
I know. Yeah.
I know. I have a very similar experience in terms of people laughing at me like, ew, what's on your hands? What is that? And then up to my engagement, I had a corporate job for 15 years. And I remember going to work after being engaged, and I was hiding my mehndi under my desk. And my boss was like, hey, like, show it off. There's nothing wrong with that, and it was just, it's trauma. It's like it's the trauma from elementary school.
Yeah, especially in like the healthcare fields where, let's say, I think I remember this with my wife when we got married about 17 years ago, and she had mehndi on her hands. And we remember thinking that would patients think that she's got some sort of hand disease or skin disfiguration or whatever.
Yeah.
And but I'm so glad to see that so much of that has changed. And, this is going to sound like it's pumping your tires, but I think it's in large part to people like you being brave to put yourself out there and bring this aspect of South Asian and Desi culture to the mainstream. I mean, with Kylie Jenner and T.O. and some of the other people, Sonam Kapoor and things like that, as the lines get blurred, let's not underestimate your role in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My son was floored when I was like, who's coming on the podcast, and I was telling him about how you worked with Drake recently.
Yeah.
And he is a huge Drake fan. So it's kind of cool to see not only other cultures accepting us, but even our own kids, right? Because as that quote unquote distillation happens, they're more and more American. To see them gravitate back towards like, oh, my culture is cool. And, it's so powerful to be able to do that through art.
Yeah, it's really cool. And, having children of my own, like for them to be able to see that I can actually take this to the next level or outside of our community and like take it to the Grammy stage or whatever it is, like they feel a sense of pride. And they show it in different ways. Like they'll post me on their Instagram story. And to me, that's like better than being reposted by the Shade Room. Like my kids are reposting my stuff and feeling proud. And I think that means more to me than anything. So
I hear you. Yeah. That's especially as they get older, right? You keep hearing about how you get less and less cool. And if you're getting more cool, like now we're going to do parenting classes by Neha Assar. Like,
there was one kid at the track meet this weekend that was like, no way, you work, because my daughter must have been telling him, and he just kept on like, so who else have you worked on? And I was like, oh my God, like calm down. Yeah. I'm still just a mom at the track meet,
I know. Yeah, that's great.
It's cute though. It's really cute.
So take us back. You said something in our pre-show. All of us have some innate talent or artistic ability or some gift that makes us unique, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so take us back. You also said you had a corporate job.
I did.
We want to know about that transition when you decided to lean in to this part of you that, arguably is, I don't know, maybe this is too dramatic, but arguably is your dharma, right? Is your purpose, is your essence for being on the planet. Take us back to when you leaned into that, and what another listener who has some talent, maybe they're a Bhangra dancer, right? Or they're an entrepreneur. I'm looking at Payal Kadakia here, ClassPass, right? Or an entrepreneur, or maybe they're a doctor and they want to be a health and fitness coach or something, right?
Yeah.
Take us back to that tipping point and the process you went through and what wisdom you can share to, I'm thinking of the mom or the dad who's working away, they're listening to this, and they're like, you know what? Damn it. I got something in me that the world needs to find out about.
Yeah. So it's interestingly enough, the Mendhi started way before my engineering career. I have an electrical engineering degree, but
oh, wow.
I
know what they say about double E's, right?
What?
You can't spell geek without two E's.
Yeah, trust. That's why
I'm a mechanical engineer. Yeah.
That's why I always stood out like a sore thumb in that industry. It was insane.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Engine nerds unite.
For real. And I married one.
Yes. All engineers in the room in terms of, I married one, so I'm not one, but the two of you.
What kind are you, Dinesh?
I'm a mechanical engineer.
Oh, there you go.
But I was so bad at it, like really, really bad at it, that the easier path was to go to law school.
There you go. There you go.
I'll tell you the story later on, but I was mixing like perfumes and things at one point working for Motorola to test whether the stuff you put on your face would react with the plastic on the substance. Right?
Yeah.
Because you could burn yourself if there's like makeup or lotion that reacts with the plastic. And then I decided to work at the patent office, went to law school, and here I am. So very similarly, I pursued something differently. So I'm really interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So in 1994, I just dated myself. I was a freshman in high school. My sister had gone to a carnival and got her mehndi done under some tent, and she got a business card from the woman doing the mehndi. She brings it home. She's like, Mom, Neha can totally do this. Now, it was already known that I had this interest in mehndi art because I used to just cover sheets and sheets of paper with mehndi designs using my pencil, like you, Seema, just basic paper, pencil, that's it. And I would cover sheets and sheets of it with the most intricate artwork. I would leave no spaces. And my mom was like, yeah, you should go down and talk to this lady at the salon. And I was like, I'm 14, like I'm a freshman. I don't want to work. I don't care, and she's like, oh, you shouldn't, pass up this opportunity. If there's something out there, you should try it. So I went down there. She gave me a mehndi cone for the first time. For those that don't know what a mehndi cone is, it's kind of like a pastry bag with a very fine tip. So you can, control your lines and whatnot. But she gave that to me for the first time. I'd never held one. My sister was my model. I did my sister's mehndi. She's like, oh, you're a little slow, but I'm going to hire you anyways. And I walked out of there on a Tuesday, I remember, after school, and thinking, who cares? Like, who's going to want Mendhi anyways? And then by Thursday afternoon, she calls and she's like, I have a bride waiting for you in the salon. You need to come down. So that was my first professional client ever, was a bride. And it took me like 4 or 5 hours. I did my job. They were very happy. And that was it. It was like a switch, and it was just bride after bride after bride. And so I spent my high school years kind of doing that. I also worked in like the hair and makeup industry a little bit. But then by the time I got to college, like I went off to college for engineering school, and I used that money to sort of pay my way through. Like, you know, I would work till 3 a.m. doing Mendhi parties and all kinds of bridal stuff. And it was just insane. And when I graduated, I had in mind, like, I'm going to do this for 5 years and then I'm going to venture off on my own. And my idea was to like just have a salon and be a salon owner, and everything was going to be great. But like, you know, life fast forwarded. Like I got engaged, I got married, had kids, and it was like, okay, I was in the oil and gas industry in petrochem, working as an instrumentation and controls engineer. And just to be real, I mean, every time the political climate changed, the industry would change because it was oil and gas. And so my husband and I had our eggs all in the same basket. We were both in petrochem. If we got laid off, it was, you know, like, because the political climate changed, we get laid off. And it was like, well, I guess Mendhi's going to have to hold us afloat, you know? And it would. Like that little Mendhi cone just helped us get through so much. We bought our first house, like we did all this stuff, and like, you know, and then you start thinking of real things like our kids need health benefits, and you know, and you're like, shit, like I can't leave my job right now. You know, like it's just not the right time. So I ended up spending 15 years in the engineering world, and it wasn't until COVID. I was the only engineer doing what I was doing on the entire West Coast for this company for 5.5 years. And I would ask for help, like, hey, I need to hire help. I need to hire help. They would say, we can't find anyone. We can't find anyone. Well, in 2020, I got COVID, and it took me 3 weeks to recover. And within those 3 weeks, they found someone to replace me during a pandemic.
Yeah.
They couldn't find me help, but they found someone to replace me. And I was like, you know what? This is it. Like, I'm so replaceable. I'm just a number. Nobody cares. Nobody values me. I'm done. And I told my husband, like, that's it. I would use my PTO to go work on brides and celebrities. And I wouldn't have enough PTO to spend the holidays with my kids. I would have to take without pay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was to a point where I would turn clients away because I didn't have enough PTO to cover their bridal Mendhi. And I was like, that's it. Like, this is it. I'm taking the leap. And I was done. I left.
So good. So many nuggets and gems in there. One thing I want to point out, or to not point out, but to dive into a little bit, is, you know, you were hustling, and I'll use that word in all the definitions that are out there on Instagram right now. In college, you had a side hustle when you were an engineer for 15 years, right?
Yes, which was practically full time.
Yeah, and it was 14 more years than I was an engineer. Okay, so that was a long time. And then you were using your paid time off to go work on this. What do you say to people out there right now where that's anti-hustle culture or anti-grinding? Where is the line? And for me, it's been blurred a little bit. Where is the line between like just honest to goodness grinding it out and not being fixated by the 0.00001% who made it pretty easily?
Yeah.
And saying that, you know, I'm going to turn my back on hard work. And that's hard work, what you just described. That's hard work. I can feel it.
It is.
And the momming, which is also, by the way, a full-time job. And then your self-care is in there. Your marriage is in there. Your extended family is in there. All of it.
Right. And then you just mentioned you pulled an all-nighter, right?
Yeah, I'm still pulling all-nighters
currently. So what do you say, or what is your approach, or what is the advice you would give as someone who's sort of torn between sort of hustle culture and I shouldn't work so hard, it should come easier to me, and then on the other side, the people that are having the success are grinding it out?
Yeah. I really think the difference between both of those is passion, right? When you're passionate about something, you'll just do it. Like it's something in you. It's like that fire that just like, I need to get this done. I need to sit and let this creative energy out. And, you know, like you said, Seema, like I'm juggling a million things, right? Family, kids, the household, myself, work. And I would have to switch between like this total creative freedom, you know, that I had, and then go back and be like so structured at work, like answering to a boss and all these clients, and it would just be insane. Yes. But you know, it's like, gosh, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
Passion.
Yeah, but the passion, like it doesn't go away. And people would say to me all the time, like, you're a workaholic. What are you working so hard towards? And it's like, this is what I'm working so hard towards. Like to sit at home, be with my kids, work from home while they're doing homework. I can help them with their math, science, art, English, and you name it. Like I'm there. I can cook all their meals and drop them off at school and pick them up and be at everything. Like I don't miss a beat now. You know, like they're successful athletes. I'm at all their games and their meets and whatever it is. And that's what I wanted, because I know that my time with them being at home is limited. And I think being a mom and wanting that kind of pushed me to just get to this point. I knew I wanted to quit my career at some point. And yeah, it took me 10 extra years than I planned. But this is what I worked so hard for. And it's passion. And my own husband is that percent that says, hey, you know, you work too hard. Like, don't you want a cushy life? Like, go back to the 9 to 5. You get a guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks. You know, everything's cushy. Like, don't you want that? And I'm like, life is too short to wait for a paycheck every 2 weeks. Like, I just can't do that. You know,
I mean, then you don't get to work with Rihanna. Like, why would I want that?
Yeah, but one day it will happen.
Working hard for something we don't care about is called stress.
Working hard
for something we love is called passion. That's by Simon Sinek, right?
100%.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing too, like you touched on so much, I just felt something inside me stir, because you're describing one path, right? Of Dinesh and I, we've often talked about the yes and tool of, you know, being mindful of not just excluding, like I can't do this because I'm doing that. Right. Like I can't be a Mendhi artist because I'm engineering and I have kids and this and that and the other. And so like for me, I'm kind of comparing my own story where I sort of like gradually burned out and then didn't know, I was lost. I didn't know what to do before I found, you know, I feel like I still don't know what I'm doing. And there's definitely days like that. And then there's other women that I know that are super powerful, super amazing jobs, who just like one fine day are like, no, I'm done. Right. Kind of like you described, there's something that happens where they have this realization that life is too short. And I don't know, talk to us more about what that internally was like for you, because you mentioned the stark contrast between the artistry and the flow and the flexibility, even in scheduling, versus like, I'm here working for the man and it's 8 to 5 and there's protocols. And, you know, what is that like for you to have that tension?
I mean, it's scary, to be honest. Like, I remember being at my desk and I turned 40 and all my coworkers were like, oh my God, happy birthday, this, that. And then one coworker wrote on a Post-it 25 more years and they stuck it on my wall. And I was like, hell no. Like, I do not see myself doing this for 25
like,
years.
I'm out.
And I would listen to podcasts like on my earbuds, you know, while I'm working at work. And one of the quotes that I heard in one podcast was, working hard is in the fiber of my being, and giving up is not an option, you know? And so I like wrote it down on my Post-it. I still have it. It's like in my cabinet, and I lost the Post-it for a while. I found it when I was cleaning up my cubicle, and, you know, I saved it, and I taped it up on my wall because it's like, there's no option. making the transition was scary as hell. I could have, people are like, you should have, approached the company and said, hey, this is not legal for you to let me go because I had COVID for 3 weeks or whatever. And it's like, no, like I didn't want to burn that bridge because they were like, we'll give you severance if you don't sue us or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll take it. Cause what if, like, what if my art, and even at that point, I think I've been doing my mehndi for 30 years. So at that point it was like 27 years or 28 years that I'd been doing 26 years I was doing my mehndi. And it was still scary because it was like, what if my artwork doesn't pan out for me? What if I don't succeed? Even though I had already hit all these milestones. So you do still have some fear.
Yeah.
Now you're letting go of this stable 6-figure income that's like, great benefits and whatnot. But that just made me hustle so much harder. I had a really hard year last year. Last year was really hard. 23 was one of my hardest years. But I made it through. And I mean, I'm coming out on top. And I think this year's already off to a really great start. So it's scary for sure.
Courage. You have the courage to get over that, right?
Yeah. I wake up scared every day, just being honest.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's great. Like, SZA will call and be like, hey, can you work on me today? And I'm like, cool, I'm there. And that day I'll feel great. And then once that day's over, I'm like, okay, like what's next? There's uncertainty, right? Like at the end of the day, I'm an artist. I'm not the toothbrush that's being sold at Walmart. Like I'm not that hot commodity that's like flying off the shelf. I'm an artist. It's a very specialized art. It's a luxury. It's a luxury art, right? Even though mehndi is needed for weddings day in and day out. Like, they can easily hire someone else and that's fine. There's so many weddings to go around, but I need to hit those that really appreciate my art. And that's, to do that, it's a grind. Like it is a grind.
Yeah. And I want to kind of pull on that a little bit more if you're okay with it.
Of course.
Because I think I see it in my own family. I see it in our culture, just about this idea of like working hard and the grind and having it be really no other option. And versus you also mentioned it's not about working hard. It's about passion. Like that's the little fairy dust, if you will, that makes it, it's different. The outcomes are different. Your intentions behind the actions you're taking are different. I mean, so just kind of for the listeners that are out there, the ego is going to tell you all the reasons this worked for Neha and for Dinesh and for me. And, all of these things like, oh, well, you can do 2 different things or 3 different things and their situation's different. But I really hope, Neha, you're inspiring me.
Oh, thank you.
In terms of just look for ways, guys, to work with passion, to work with service, like this desire to make the world more beautiful in your own way. No one can ever yes, Neha, there are other mehndi artists out there, but no one can do what you do in the way that you do it. And you're not just about mehndi. We're going to go into this here in a little bit, but it's about more than just, dermal fashion, if you will, like epidermal fashion. It's just,
it's definitely more than that. And the passion really drives me. I've had other henna artists tell me like, Neha, I used to do glassware, I do candles and I do this, but I'm just, it's not in me, like the passion. I'm not as passionate, and I get, I get that, everyone works in their own capacity. I think when I look back, at the 15 years of being in a corporate world, I feel blessed that I was able to take my art to the next level. And I do contribute that to having the stability of another job, whereas like a lot of mehndi artists, maybe they're immigrants and they come here from another country and they have no choice but to do mehndi and survive. And so that's the difference, is that they depend on that, whereas like I didn't depend on my mehndi art until 3 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm getting a taste of it and I'm like, holy shit, like, what am I doing? Sometimes I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But I think that's what helped me catapult a little bit further. And it was having that stability and just really taking advantage of that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Passion is such an interesting thing, right? I mean, a lot of people hear the word passion and they're like, well, I don't know what I'm passionate about, or I haven't found the thing like Neha has to go all in. And I wonder if the right way to think about passion isn't to go looking for it, but to let the passion find you, right? And,
I agree.
And I guess what I'm hearing from you is that you were just minding your business, living life, right? You went to engineering school. Why did you go to engineering school?
I was good at math and physics. And I also had to check the boxes for my parents, just to be honest. But you know, it was a good start to a career with just a 4-year degree. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't go to grad school. I didn't go and get my MBA or, you know, my master's. I ended up in like petrochem, which is really lucrative. And I did well, you know. I learned so many aspects. I mean, when you were talking about calculating or, you know, doing calculations based on different mixes of perfumes and oils and things like that, it reminded me of my first job in engineering. I was working for Halliburton in the oil fields, learning, you know, how to mix certain cements based on the sedentary rock under the ground in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, because we would extract oil and natural gas from the earth. And I had to make sure that cement mix was perfect to like hold the casing, you know, straight in the ground. And I was the only female. I was the only female amongst 100 men in the field for 15 hours a day in minus 15-degree weather. It was the most miserable thing, you know, it was so miserable. But I got a taste of like the most brutal part of engineering in my first job. And I should have known that it wasn't for me just in that moment. But it wasn't till 15 years later that I finally made the move. And, you know, Oprah said that it starts with a whisper, right? It's like in your brain, like it starts with a whisper. And when you don't listen to that whisper, it just gets louder and louder and louder. And there was a day I got to work and it was like someone shouted in my brain, like, you do not belong here, you know? And eventually I got laid off. So it was great. Like within that week. Perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Yeah. And so what I hear you say is let the passion, you know, find you.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
And it's okay to lean into the things that keep coming back to you.
Yeah. It's almost like that inner voice. I mean, you have to really listen to it and, just follow your gut instinct. If you know you're good at something, go for it. Maybe it's just another position in your company or like in your field, you know, but always take a chance on yourself. Like don't count yourself out, you know. Of course there's people that are always going to depend on you, like your family and your children, but it's like if you love them, you're not going to give up on them. So with that intention, you work really hard and you just make it happen. It's just, I can't explain it. Like I'm just as passionate about being a mom as I am about my artwork. So why would I ever let my kids down? Like I will hustle till the day I die. Like I don't care. I'll paint sidewalks if I have to. Yeah.
I love it. Sounds good. So Neha, that was such an incredible conversation. You're such an inspiration. I can't get over, I have to confess, during our recording, I've been just looking at Google images of your artwork and your Mendhi, and it's so stunning. But before we let you go, we have a little tradition at the Happy and Human podcast where we do a little bit of wrap up. And it's a little bit more of a lighter conversation. All right. So the first part is, you know, you have a ton of lived experience. You went from an engineer to a Mendhi artist, and you're working with a number of celebrities. But what is one piece of wisdom through all of your experiences that you can share with our listeners to help us change our lives today?
I think the key is to really dream big. My motto is that, like, if you can dream it, you can make it happen. And it may take, you know, it may take the time to like sit and write down exactly what it takes to meet these little goals, right? You have like an end goal, like, hey, I want to, for me, it's like, I want to work, I want my work on the big stage, right? Like I want the whole world to see my work. And that's a huge goal, but it's like, I have to break it down in steps. And then I take those steps and I break those down into little steps. And then I write my little steps even further in more minute detail on what it's going to take for me to get there. Yeah. And I think that applies to all areas in life. It's like waking up and saying, hey, I'm going to make dumplings for dinner tonight. Like I have a lot of research to do in order to make dumplings, right? Like I need to go to the grocery store, make a list of what I need, find a recipe, make a list of what I need, then find which grocery store has it, right? It's like breaking it all down into little steps. And it really takes that. Like you can get so overwhelmed in your thoughts. And for me, I think the biggest, most life-changing thing was just making lists and breaking down every little step of what I have to do to get to where I want to be. And I've moved mountains by doing that.
Wow, that is so good and so timely, because I'm reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. And basically he talks about, we are the sum of our tiniest habits. And based on your answer there, I see a book in your future somewhere.
Oh my gosh.
About the Neha Assar story. So good.
Thank you.
Another part of our wrap up is we ask it forward. So it's a little bit of a tradition where our prior guest, without knowing who you are, left you a question, and I'm going to ask you that question, and then you get a chance to ask our future guest, without knowing who they are, a question, and then you'll have to listen back to see what they answer.
Yeah, of course.
So your question comes from Sheila Akbar, who is a double PhD and now a college admissions consultant and coach to some of the most, well-to-do parents on the planet. And her question to you, without knowing who you are, that's the fun part, is what's a crucible moment that you experienced, a really difficult moment that crystallized you into something stronger and the version that we are all able to experience today?
I think, oh gosh, yeah, so what really affected me and shaped me into who I am, and it sucks because I have to attribute it to my engineering culture, to my engineering career in the past. It really did shape me. And I think being a woman in a male-dominated industry, I faced a lot of issues, right? Men speaking to me in a certain way, saying certain things, putting you down, not having faith in you or your work, and having to prove yourself like 10,000 times harder. I think that really frustrated me with my career. Like I said, I was the only female working in the oil fields when I was 23 years old in minus 15-degree weather. Simple things like I couldn't just go to the restroom in the field because there was no porta potty on site at one of these sites that we went to, I remember. And the guys could just go wherever they wanted. And like for a female, there was no access to a restroom. It was like we had to drive 3 miles down to a shop to like use the restroom. And it was like, those kinds of things, it really shaped me. It was like, Neha, welcome to the rest of your life if this is what you're going to do, And it made me realize that in order for me to really make it in the engineering career, it was going to be like a constant struggle, like a constant battle. And I think it turned me off, and it pushed me more towards wanting to get to the point where I am now. And, it just pushed me to want to be free, to not to have to report to anybody, to not have anybody doubt me. Right. Yeah. For years, I reported to somebody else, and I was giving quarterly reports on finances and how big, because I ended up being a project manager at the end of my career. But like, I would give reports on like our budget versus expended and percent complete and this and that. And like now with some of the licensing deals I have, like people are sending me those reports like, hey, these are our quarterly sales and this is what we project for the next, for the future. And it's really a defining moment. I feel proud. And I mean, it's only upward from here.
So good. So good. I mean, telling that story just makes us so proud of you, everything you've
Thank you.
done and you've created for yourself.
Thank
Seema,
you.
we are just about to ask Neha her question that she would like to ask the next guest. And you don't know who it is, so make it a good one.
Yeah. Well, you guys interview some pretty amazing people, that, have made it big and have done really big things for themselves. But my question to them is, do you think you've made it? And if not, um, what is it going to take for you to feel like you've made it? Like, will you ever feel like you've made it?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good coaching question because the follow-up in my mind is, what permission do you need? Or what are you able to do once you give yourself permission to be able to make it?
Yeah, I know. And personally, people are like, Neha, like, you've made it. You've done, and for me, it's like, no. I mean, for example, last year I had created some sneakers for a rapper to wear at the Grammys.
Mm.
And he was supposed to wear them on the red carpet. It was like this thing. And then last minute, he ended up choosing Jimmy Choo dress shoes over my hand painted sneakers. And I was like crushed,
Yeah.
And this year, my artwork was on the Grammy stage holding 3 Grammys,
Wow.
and performing. And that it just, you know, I feel like, yeah, in that sense, maybe I made it a little bit, but now it's like I want to move on to bigger and better things. So I always wonder about people, like, what is next?
It's a good question. Good
Yeah.
question. Before we finish with our wrap up and I turn it over to Seema, John Maxwell, he's a leadership coach, and he talks about high performers. If we make the goal a finish line, once we cross that finish line, we're finished, right? It's a finish line. And for that reason, he talks about never trying to set a goal as something that you can define as making it or not, right? Like the goal isn't to make some arbitrary, finish line or goal or accolade. The goal is just to see how great you can be.
For sure. And there's a surprise in every little milestone, right? Like, you never think that my Mendhi's going to end up on Sesame Street, you never think that you're going to have a puzzle being sold at Target, Walmart, and Nordstrom.com with your Mendhi art. Like, as a Mendhi artist, think about it. Like, in India, they teach these girls to use a Mendhi cone or how to do Mendhi as like a life skill, as like a survival skill. And to think that it's gone to a place like that, with so much hard work and dedication. I mean, I think there's something to be said for it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. That is incredible. My challenge to the listeners is to take 5 minutes today and reflect on Neha's question that we're going to ask of the next guest, but reflect on it for yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed my time speaking with you guys today, and I hope to actually meet you in person soon.
Yeah, definitely. Before we let you go, tell everyone where they can find you and where they can connect with you. And, listeners, I would encourage you to go to Neha's website. She does custom painted sneakers, custom painted artwork, mugs for your tea, charcuterie and cheese boards. And her art is just so incredible. And I'll tell you, as my little secret, when I'm looking for a present for Anjana or for my kids or for someone that I would like to be really unique and not from, your big box store, I'm going to be going to Neha and asking to create something really special for the special people in my life. So Neha, tell us, where can they reach you and where can they just admire and learn more about your artwork?
Definitely, like Dinesh said, you can go to my website, nehaassar.com. And to keep up with like all the latest stuff that I'm working on, Instagram is the best way. Again, that's at Neha Assar on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Threads, you name it. I'm everywhere, just at Neha Assar. But I really hope you guys enjoy what you see and that it strikes some, something in you to just feel moved and inspired.